What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about what's going on with Sly Cooper. Kind of an annual thing here where we talk about Sly, but you know what? I want to do kind of two things in this video. I want to talk about the year that we just had, because in a lot of ways, I think it was one of the biggest years, and probably, well, actually, in my opinion, it is the biggest year that we've had for Sly Cooper since Thieves in Time. Even with, like, the TV show kind of thing and, like, you know, kind of getting, like, abruptly canceled, I don't know. I really felt the momentum was more in this year than I've ever seen before in my time covering it, in my time talking about it, and I guess in my adult life. It is easily the most that we've really experienced of Sly Cooper. Now, you know, not to go crazy, it's not like we got a remake this year. It's not like we got Sly 5 this year or anything, but for what we normally get with Sly, which is nothing, let's not, you know, beat around the bushes. If we get absolutely nothing for Sly, this year was something very, very special. And, you know, going into next year, what could be coming? So those are kind of the two different parts I want to talk about in this video. What we just did in 2024 and what's going on in 2025. And so, okay, let's start with this. Now, if you have been watching the channel or you've been around the Sly fandom, you know what happened in 2024, but here's just a quick refresher for you, right? We got the trilogy. We got Sly 1, 2, and 3 in a new way. I like to say it like that because, yes, you could have always kind of done this, but in reality, using the emulator, you know, built in, having the rewind feature, having new trophies, right, and just being able to do it natively, the biggest thing, right? No longer streaming, which you could do, you know, the PS3 collection of Sly. And I've said this 1,000 times, you know, covering these individually when the news happened, but to pick Sly Cooper, right? It's one thing that we got Sly 1, 2, and 3 individually, and you're able to do what you can do right now, which is play it. The reviews are obviously fantastic. It seems like a lot of people are really supporting this thing. We talked about Sly 1's success back in June, and I think Sly 2 and 3 are doing well. Not only that, but it's also them choosing Sly over other things. This, you know, this PS2 thing natively and instead of streaming it, this is new. This is not something that there's thousands of these games on the PlayStation Store. There's only a handful, and Sly as a trilogy is one of the extreme few. So I really think you got to give props to PlayStation for maybe seeing the fandom, maybe also just thinking, okay, yeah, this is something we could do, and they saw the success with Sly 1. They said, okay, Sly 2 and 3 could also do well, but it was successful, and it was huge. I mean, it was really the return of Sly, because although it's weird because we didn't get like a new game, but we did get these in new ways, you know, the old games in new ways, and that kind of, I think, made it special. It was almost like a mini Sly Cooper release. Like if a new Sly game came out, I would expect it has to be bigger than what we've experienced with Sly 1 through 3. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But this would be kind of like a taste of it, because I think you saw people rally. You saw people that are playing it for the first time. You saw people that are playing it for the 50th time that just wanted this kind of feature. And it was really a coming together moment for the Sly fandom online. And that's what I think you would see, with a brand new game or with a remake or a collection, right? Stuff like that. That's what we saw to a smaller extent with the PS2 versions of these games. So that was one thing, but he also was included in Astro Bot, and I don't want to leave that aside, and I also think we need to bring Astro Bot into this conversation. Although the game is called Astro Bot, and you might think it has nothing to do with Sly Cooper, well, okay, number one, the including him in the game, I think, was awesome. Kind of part of that Thieves level, right? With Joker, with Persona. That's actually one of my favorite levels just in the entire game. Not just because of Sly, but just kind of in general. And so, okay, I mean, you can rescue Sly, and he's a big part, obviously of their history, and they represented him there. One other thing, and this is not me trying to like read too much into it, but just again, the representation of Sly. You could actually, there's only a set number of outfits in Astro Bot where you kind of completely transform, right? And my two favorites are Cat from Gravity Rush and then Sly. So I think it's just, you don't have too many. I mean, I already said it, right? There's not an unlimited amount of outfits. It's not like every bot you rescue has an outfit that Astro can wear. There's only a couple that are represented. I think there's like 20 or so. I don't think that's the exact number, but it's somewhere in the 20s. And Sly is one of them. So I don't know. I feel like, can he make it to like a top 20 of like PlayStation's icon status? Maybe, maybe not, depending on how you look at it. But I thought that was really cool. And once I unlocked that costume, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go around as Sly Cooper the entire time. And then, there's Astro Bot as a whole. And again, we've talked about this a little bit, so I don't want to, drag, but just as a recap, Astro Bot's success, and it is a success, and I will not hear anything, otherwise, it needs to be applauded, it needs to be celebrated, and it needs to send a message to PlayStation. I think that's the biggest thing. And look, I'm not sitting here completely in denial thinking that, Astro Bot sold 10 million units and now you have to do, 50 of these type of games. I've never really been looking for that. I was looking for Astro Bot to hopefully do really what they wanted to do, and that is smaller studio, smaller budget, family-friendly game, and a game that's going to sell well, but it's also just going to do well over time. And I think what we saw through many stats and many videos that I made covering Astro Bot and its sales is that if you look at how it compared to a lot of platformers over the last 10, 15 years, it beat all of them except for Mario, okay? It did better than Ratchet and Clank, and a lot of these games, by the way, they have long legs. A lot of these kid-friendly platformers, even though, they can be made for anybody, by the way. I'm 28 myself, and I freaking love Astro Bot. These games do well over time. Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, I think it got 3, 4, 5 million. These are games that can do 3, 4, 5 million if you just give it a couple years. So the fact that Astro Bot already hit 1.5 million, I think that's super good. That's probably good enough as it is. But that is a game, I think that's a prime candidate that 2 or 3 years down the line, by the time the PS6 comes out, right, you're looking back and you're saying, oh my God, Astro Bot sold 5 million copies. When did that happen? Over time. That's how a game like this I think really works. Now, okay, well, what does that have to do with anything else? The sending a message thing, right? Yes, I want Astro Bot too, but I think it's games like that. And now you have a choice. You can make brand new games, which Astro Bot was a brand new game once upon a time, right? Or Astro was a brand new thing. Or, and you could do and/or, actually, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You have a back catalog. You have your Jak and Daxters. You have your Sly Coopers. You have a lot of others. Bring them back. And out of those, I think the appetite for Sly is probably the biggest. And you combine it with other things that we've talked about this year, right? Sly's return in a new way with Sly 1 through 3. And then this family-friendly platforming game doing pretty well. And hopefully sending a message that, hey, maybe we can do more of these. You have Sly in your back pocket. You can use it whenever you want, right? If you combine those things, and that's hope. But to be fair, in past years, we haven't had anything. The best we've had was a few years ago when there was the rumor that a Sly game was in the works, and turned out that maybe it was never true or it was canceled. Pick which one you want, but either one is depressing, right? This whole year has kind of been about hope. It's about returning, the Sly fandom kind of returning and Sly as games returning, but it's also been hope for the future of, okay, well, now they've returned. Now what do you got next? And that's what we're about to talk about. But okay, well, what's next for the franchise? And Astro Bot does well. Okay, well, what's next? Yes, an Astro Bot 2 I'm sure is going to happen, but are you going to try any others? You're just going to do one family-friendly platformer? What's the plan? Doesn't have to go our way, but it can. And that kind of hope is something that we really just don't have most of the years, especially the years that I've been covering Sly, the last 5 or so years, we've had next to nothing, okay? Now, in terms of 2025, well, there is actually one thing. There's that U2's, the figure. I actually pre-ordered it. It's coming. I think it comes at the very end of May. There was 4 of them. I think it was Ratchet, Kratos, Astro, and Sly. I got Sly and Astro. I'd like all 4 of them, but they were actually, I think they were $30 or so each. A bit expensive, so I only got 2. But so we do get a little merchandise. By the way, the Funko Pop of Sly years ago, high up in price. Hopefully you guys got it back then. I know I did. I think it's worth $70-$80 nowadays. Next year is also Sly 3's 20th anniversary. So we've lived through this. We just lived through this with Sly 2. We're about to live through it with Sly 3, and we did Sly 1 obviously a while ago. I'm kind of done holding my breath for that stuff. I would like merchandise, more things. I just mentioned Funko Pop, the U2's thing. If there's ever action figures or shirts or, any kind of posters, things like that, I'm always in for them. And I think people would support those. And I think people historically have supported when Sly has reached those kind of levels. But then, now after that, there's really nothing much left, right? What do we got in 2025? Well, it really is about that hope. Now, I have pitched the idea of, you still have Sly 4. Now, the issue with Sly 4 doing it the same way they did Sly 1 through 3 is different system, right? In terms of PS3 versus PS2. So there are rumors, and there's been rumors for years, I've covered them actually, that there is a PS3 emulator in the works for the PS5. Now, whether that ever happens or maybe they save it for the PS6 and maybe the PS6 would be capable internally of running all PlayStation systems, that would really rock. it took a while just to get the PS2 emulator doing what it's doing now, and we're not even really flexing it as much as we can. Or I'm talking as if like on PlayStation, but PlayStation has a lot more work to do to really bring like the PS2 era games out, okay, and the classics catalog. So the issue with Sly 4, like, my dream, okay, is to have all of them do what Sly 1 through 3 is, okay? So you bring them natively, so you don't have to stream it. So that would mean the collection, the Sly collection, which is there, and you can stream it through, PS3 on PS5. Bring that and bring Thieves in Time, okay? Now, the issue, again, with those are they both on PS3, and we're just not there yet. So until a PS3 emulator is running where we're able to natively download it and actually have it instead of streaming it, I just don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, other goals, of course, would be to get, like a physical thing / like a brand new release and put them all together, right? Do another Sly collection and have Thieves in Time into it. I mean, this is the part we talk about every year, right? This is the part that we say you have a collection with all 4 of them, you have a remaster, you have a remake, you have a brand new game, okay? Now, I guess one other thing actually in 2024 that happened that could come back around, I guess, in 2025. I mentioned before, in past years, we have had rumors, okay? We had them, and they were, like, snuffed out, like, right in front of our faces. One thing we saw in 2024 was kind of this new age of rumors from not the usual suspects, right? People, and I covered as many of these as I could. Colin Lack, who always, to me, seems like a really good guy, and he kind of gets, like, under-the-radar things right. He doesn't get everything right, and something like Sly is something that you're kind of waiting on for him, right? Where it's like, okay, he said he believes that there's a new Sly. There's even maybe a remaster of Sly, but he's not wrong because it hasn't happened yet, and he never said it was going to happen at a certain date, but it hasn't happened yet. I mentioned this too, over the last couple months as we were leading into the fall and the holiday time. I saw a couple accounts that generally were like kind of Sly channels or Sly accounts. They were saying they were hearing things too. Now, I don't know if they were hearing Sly 2 and 3 or they were hearing like new games, but we heard from a couple, I would say like 3 or 4 different people, and not the Tom Hendersons. I mean, I would like to hear from a Tom Henderson because he's always right, but we haven't heard from like the Nick Baker, Special Nick, who did the rumor a few years ago. These are kind of more under the radar people. So I do want to throw that out because we did hear rumors kind of throughout the year leading into Astro Bot, after Astro Bot, around Sly 1 time, around the holiday time. We heard a couple times that there is legitimately more Sly coming. So, that gets me excited, I guess only if it actually happens. I guess there is excitement, and even if it doesn't happen, it'll just, snuff out my hopes. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I just hope we don't lose the momentum. And I guess that actually is kind of a big task because we do have a lot of momentum with the amount of stuff that happened. The only way to match the momentum of 2024 in 2025 is to have like an announcement, right? Because it's like you've kind of ran out of things to do at this point. You're waiting for an emulator for PS3 games, and then you're waiting for something else Sly, and both of those you're waiting, right? It's not. I mean, I guess you could say we've been waiting for Sly 1, 2, and 3 to do this for a while. And I guess that's fair, right? So maybe one day those things will happen, but I don't know. It's been a great year. I hope we can carry it over, and by what I guess I just said, look, we're always going to be here. We'll always be here to talk about rumors. We'll always be here to love Sly and to, make videos on this franchise. And there's a lot of people that do it online, right? And on Twitter, making great posts and stuff. It's not really up to us. We can keep the fire burning, and we're going to, but it's really up to higher powers to greenlight something. So that's the hope. Hopefully in 2025, we get something. But it honestly, I don't know, like, is this the best year you could have ever hoped for? Technically, no. Technically, no, okay? Because, if they announce a brand new game, that is just, like, otherworldly, all right? But in terms of, like, reasonable expectations of what they could do in any given year, I feel like this has to be like they nailed it, right? It's tough because, they nailed it. Well, what did they really do? They did technically kind of do a lot, in a smaller scope, smaller scale. They did quite a few things. And again, I think that deserves to be, applauded and again, that's where like the messages come in where, yeah, we know you did it and we're going to reward you by buying Sly 1 through 3. We're going to play it. We're going to talk about it. We're trying to show you, PlayStation, that we want more of it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.